Hello everyone and welcome to another great episode of the GINX TV Top 10. I'm your host, Adam Savage, and today we'll be visiting the 90s as we talk about blockbuster console games. From there, we're going to head to the world of esports, specifically Valve's monster hit Counter-Strike Global Offensive, naming the very best players in the history of the game. But first, a trip to the glorious 90s as we name the top 10 console games of the era. At 10 is Spyro the Dragon. With the rise of 3D platforming thanks to Nintendo's Super Mario 64, Sony created their own IP for the PlayStation 1 in 1998, Spyro the Dragon. The game followed the spunky young dragon as he travelled through the Dragon Kingdom, freeing his brethren from under the spell of good old nasty Nork. There were also chests to break, gems and keys to collect, and speedy blue dragon egg thieves to catch. Spyro was loads of fun, and there were plenty of silly jokes scattered throughout each level that made the game an enjoyable stroll rather than a tedious grind. It's a bit of a pity he had to eat those pretty butterflies to recover health though. I wonder if they'll change that in the remake later this year. Nine is Tekken III. The Tekken series has endured a fall from grace in recent times, but back in the 90s, Tekken was the epitome of 3D beat-em-ups, and the third installment got the mix just right. Characters could now sidestep to avoid attacks, allowing for way more escapes and chances to punish the friend next to you on the couch. There was loads to unlock, and Tekken 3 welcomed 15 brand new characters, including reanimated cyborg Brian Fury, Chinese kung fu artist Ling Xiao, and the badass grandson of Heihachi, Jin Kazama. It also had a fun little beat-em-up minigame in the vein of Streets of Rage called Tekken Force. Oh, and who could forget Tekken Ball? At number 8, it's Resident Evil 1. Although the sequel would fix a few kinks, you never forgot your first time, and Resident Evil was an experience like no other when it hit the PlayStation in 1996. Everything about the spooky mansion gave you the heebie-jeebies, and the ominous music and at times deathly silence had you on the edge of your seat, wondering whether a zombie was just around the corner. Resident Evil gave you a sense of dread that made you feel vulnerable, and the limited inventory slots meant you had to choose wisely what to bring and what to leave. It was an interactive horror movie and the defining title in the survivor horror genre. Seven is Goldeneye 007. For the first-person shooter genre, GoldenEye 007 for the Nintendo 64 was a landmark title and proved an important point, that shooters could be successful on console, not just on PC. GoldenEye 007 featured an awesome 4-player split screen which introduced a new generation to the fun of casually blasting each other in the face. There were 8 multiplayer modes, each named and inspired by James Bond films, such as You Only Live Twice, which is kind of self-explanatory, and The Man with the Golden Gun, which placed a single golden pistol in the arena that killed with one bullet. Players could also adjust the modes to set the point limits, weapons, and health levels. GoldenEye 007 was a real gem when it came to multiplayer gameplay, and diamonds are forever. At 6, it's Street Fighter Alpha 3. With the PlayStation 1 driving 3D gaming forward, it seemed like the age of 2D sprites had been and gone, but Capcom's Street Fighter Alpha series truly kept hand-drawn graphics alive. No title more so than Street Fighter Alpha 3. Alpha 3 overhauled the gameplay system and introduced 3 different playstyles for players to choose, as well as a massive roster of 34 characters from the Alpha and original Street Fighter series, in addition to brand new characters such as Karen, Cody and R. Mika. It was fast, it was furious, and it proved 2D beat-em-ups could still keep up with their 3D modern-day counterparts. Plus, you got to play Dan, Ryu and Ken's terrible understudy. Gotta love his taunts. Brilliant. Number 5 is Metal Gear Solid. What initially appeared to be just a military game gave birth to one of the most iconic video game characters of the 90s, Solid Snake. Metal Gear Solid, released in 1998, had a plot deep enough to grace the silver screen involving government conspiracies, love, gene manipulation, and the threat of nuclear war. But we were most interested in disguising ourselves as a cardboard box. Metal Gear Solid was a pioneer stealth game, and the thrill of sneaking your way past guards and bypassing security to reach the next area got your heart racing. With great boss battles against the infamous members of Foxhound and weapons galore, Metal Gear Solid was the action game of the 90s. Four is Gran Turismo. Driving games were nothing new, but when the original Gran Turismo came out with the PlayStation 1, its combination of arcade-style racing and customization appealed to everyone. If you wanted to, you could ride in your own customized Honda Civic, or simply splash out your in-game money to get your hands on a dangerously fast Dodge Viper. Gran Turismo was not about boosts or power-ups, just smooth driving, and shaving the seconds off your times to upgrade your license to join new circuits became something of an obsession. The 2-player split screen was a big hit, and you could even save your car on your memory card to bring to a friend's house. Oh, and did we forget to mention it was the best-selling PlayStation 1 game of all time? Massive. Number 3 is Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. You can't beat Ocarina of Time for present-day nostalgia, can ya? It was the first in the series with 3D graphics, and much like with Super Mario 64, Zelda's jump to 3D received critical acclaim. The game was immense in scale, and the land of Hyrule was full of life, foes, and dungeons. Set in 2 different time periods, players got to control both a child Link and an adult Link, each with distinct items to use and puzzles to solve. Ocarina of Time was also when Link's trusty steed Epona made her debut, a sidekick who is now inseparable from the iconic hero. Ocarina of Time was a breakthrough for Zelda and took the franchise to dizzy new heights. 20 years on, and it still holds up. At 2, it's Final Fantasy VII. It seems like you can't enjoy any list about video games without mentioning Final Fantasy VII, but making a GINX TV top 10 of the best games of the 90s and not including it would be a crime. Square Enix's Final Fantasy VII was released for PlayStation 1 in 1997 and went on to sell over 9 million copies. Not only was it the first time the Final Fantasy series got the 3D treatment, but it was also for many Western fans their first contact with the series. With an Oscar-worthy soundtrack by Nobuo Uematsu, a massive open world to explore, brilliant character arcs, and a truly iconic villain in Sephiroth, Final Fantasy VII was an award-winning recipe. We can't wait for the remake to be released. And at number 1 is Super Mario 64.
It's me, Mario!
The best-selling Nintendo 64 game of all time, Super Mario 64 was just that good. Nintendo had managed to flawlessly convert their #1 2D franchise into 3D, and boy, was it colourful. Once again, Nintendo were platformer pioneers. There was just so much to do, so many worlds to explore, and everything you loved about 2D Mario looked even better in 3D. You could swim, you could fly, you could even skate around on a turtle shell for the hell of it. It was quite a masterpiece of gameplay, but nothing was quite as satisfying as burning Mario's bum, let's all be honest. It's crazy to think how many brilliant titles came out on PlayStation 1 and Nintendo 64, and how many of those franchises still live on today. We'll give you a few to think about it as we head to a short break. Don't go anywhere, we'll see you in a few.